I'm here in Oslo, and at that time when Edvard Munch lived, some of the time it was called Kristiania. And I wanted to show you Munch's Kristiania, and one of the first addresses that we're going to see is Pilestredet 30. He moved here when he was 2 years old, and one of the first tragedies would happen here, the death of his mother. When Edvard Munch was 5 years old, he lost his mother Laura to tuberculosis. They would often reminisce and remember her from the letter to their older sister Sophie. In this letter, she reminds them, I'm here, I'm looking at you, behave, and soon we will be reunited yet again. It's a reminder of death and of behaving well, I suppose. Right behind this tram stop is one of the addresses that Edvard Munch used to live, at Thorvald Meyers Street 48. Edvard Munch was often bedridden. He had acute bronchitis, he had fever, so he had to stay at home. And luckily he had his Aunt Karen who would take care of him. So Aunt Karen was the younger sister of his mother, and she was artistically gifted herself. And she would see that Edvard Munch was really good at drawing. And so they connected through that. So we're at the area that we so lovingly call Løkka, short for Grüner. And when I was a student, I used to live over there. And I didn't know that across this park, Edvard Munch used to live. So Edvard Munch and his family moved here when he was only 12 years old. And this was because of his father's practice. So his father had a modest income, being a military doctor. When they moved here, it was to get closer to the people who lived here. And so the practice was in the actual apartment. So it's strange to think that Edvard Munch was so exposed to like patients and illness and death. And he would move here to the area that we call Fossveien 7, and a tragedy would actually happen here. You see, this is the apartment where Edvard Munch lost his older sister, Sophie. And they were quite close, actually. And after this tragedy, they moved down one building to Fossveien 9. But Løkka wasn't just only sad things. Edvard Munch, he learned a lot here. He would draw, he would paint. He would actually paint his brother Andreas from the room that they shared. He would draw sceneries from the window. He would draw fairy tales that his father used to read to him. Løkka was his beginning. Fossveien was all too small for the Munch family, who were now, the kids were growing. And so they moved into Skausplass 1 because it was spacious, it was well lit. Interestingly enough, this is where he painted the sick child.
In the painting The Sick Child, we see a memory that Edvard Munch returns to throughout his life. This memory is of his sister Sophie dying from tuberculosis. This painting would become his breakthrough.
On my left side, we have the main street of Kristiania. And on the other side, we have a building where Edvard Munch would rent a studio with other young artists. That studio in the loft was called Pultosten, meaning cream cheese. And in the studio, Edvard Munch and other artists, they would learn from each other, lean on each other, give each other advice. And this guy right here, this is Christian Krogh. Christian Krogh had painted in Paris. He was a naturalist painter. He had gone to their studio for free to give them advice. So Christian Krogh, alongside Hans Jaeger, the anarchist naturalist author, he valued truth over everything. And he had written down that everyone should write about their own lives. Write your life. And this would be one of the fundamental pillars of Edvard Munch's painting style afterwards. He would paint his subjective experiences in life. We find ourselves in Our Saviour's Cemetery in Oslo, and I'm walking past the tombstone of Christian Krogh. And on this road, I can see the profile of Edvard Munch's tombstone. Edvard Munch died in 1944, and this was just a year before the Second World War ended. Edvard Munch knew that there was no one to really take care of his art, and so in 1940 he wrote a will where he wrote that everything of his art would be given to the municipality of Oslo, so that he knew that his art would be taken care of. And our guide ends here, with the sun resting on his tombstone.